For Session Update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. Transportation is stalled, and both the House and Senate have failed to pass their respective bonding bills. With just a few days left in the 2016 legislative session, Governor Mark Dayton answered questions from the Capitol Press Corps on topics ranging from bonding to Real ID. Here's the governor's media availability from Thursday afternoon.
So we hear a tax target is close. Are you aware of that closeness, and are you in support?
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know the specifics. I've heard numbers of 250 and 400 and 250 or 300 and 450. I've heard a couple of different rumors. I don't have anything definitive at this point.
Are they keeping you in the loop this year?
Yeah. Commissioner Bowery's been closely working with Chairman Davids and Chairman Scoy, and they've been very forthcoming. I just heard they were still had nailed it finally down, but that's my understanding as of 10 minutes ago, so that's probably outdated.
Governor, the House is debating, if they haven't voted already, on the bonding bill. They're going to defeat it. Not enough Democratic votes. What does that mean? And is that a hopeful sign? What is that?
Well, I don't know what that means procedurally. I believe they have another vehicle to go to conference committee. Yeah. But it means that the DFL members of the in the House whose support is necessary to pass a bill, both the bills in the House and Senate have to be bipartisan, think is too low, and I would agree with them. I think first it was $600 million, now it's $800 million. It's just short changes, the kind of investments we need for the future of Minnesota. And it's, higher education, they're leaving out the University of Minnesota's health sciences project, and here in Minneapolis we're working hard to build up the medical school, which is crucial as a corollary to what they're doing in Rochester with Mayo, to build a preeminent medical technology corridor for the benefit of health care for all Minnesotans, but also in terms of one of the cornerstones of our future economic growth. So they're just really short-sighted in their limitation.
So in an odd way, is this a signal that maybe things will move forward from here because they're defeating it right away today?
I can't say. I don't know. I hope they'll go to conference committee on a bonding bill, and I hope they'll agree to something closer to what the Senate and I put forward. It's a responsible bill. It's fiscally responsible. And again, if you look, I saw the Chairman Torkelson said that he'd received over $5 billion of requests. So $800 million is a short shrift of that. And if you look at the projects, it's important to look at the projects that are not being funded in their bill. Just projects that are vitally important all over the state of Minnesota.
Governor, at this stage of negotiations over bonding specifically, what do you think is a reasonable number?
I'm going to see how the conference committee, but of course I think my proposal, $1.4 billion, is eminently reasonable, eminently affordable, and absolutely necessary.
Governor, of the $900 million surplus forecast for fiscal 17, do you have in mind a figure for how far you will go with regard to ongoing recurring spending beyond which you would not move?
I told the conferees, or I should say, I've told the leaders, all four caucuses, that we should set aside the $500 million that's in my budget proposal for the transportation. If that is not agreed upon, if there's not a transportation bill, that money should be carried forward into the next biennium, and that we should leave $200 million minimally on the bottom line at the end of fiscal 19, so at the end of the next biennium.
You would allow then $500 million in the fiscal 17 for ongoing spending?
Well, I'm combining the 3 years. I'm most concerned about what is left at the end of the next biennium. So, in terms of one-time spending this session versus ongoing, I'm going to look at that, but I haven't specified how much of that 200 million, say, has to be said, not occur in the next biennium. But I'm saying at the end of the next biennium, the end of the next 3 years, fiscal years, we need $200 million as a minimum amount remaining on the bottom line at this stage with the forecast. We're going to have 2 more forecasts before next year's legislative session, but this is where we'd be now. And then if there's not a transportation bill, I hope there will be, that 500 million would also carry forward into the bottom line.
Governor, are there areas in the negotiations where the administration and other legislative leaders have reached any agreements? I mean, at this point, it sounds like they might be close on a tax target. Transportation, as far as I can tell, is stalled. But I mean, are there any areas where there is progress being made?
I'm not. I mean, I think there's been progress. I think the tax conferees, at least in their discussions, have made progress. The supplemental budget, I haven't seen the resolution on that. I know there are a couple of sticking points on that. The bonding bill, again, if it goes in the conference committee, I'm hopeful they'll come up with something in between. That, again, it's going to need bipartisan support in both the House and Senate in order to pass. So it's going to have to meet a test of sufficiency in the view of House DFLers and a test of insufficiency in the view of some Senate Republicans. But, you know, that's what compromise is. You agree to things you don't agree with.
Governor, Speaker Dow told some of us yesterday that you provided them a list of things you wouldn't accept in terms of in the budget bill, I think policy things. Can you share what types of items will prompt you to reject a budget out of hand?
Well, you know, there are a number of them, but if they want to make that list public, I'd rather look at the bills that are and see what's not there and comment on what was there before. But there are a number of policy items that I don't think belong, it's particularly in a supplemental budget bill, such as the ones that I mentioned yesterday.
So you gave them a list, but you're not willing to share it with the public?
I'm not going to get into detail. Let's see what they come forward with. Let me see what comes forward if there is a conference report on the supplemental, and if there are items that I still find problematic there, I'll comment at that time.
The Real ID Conference Committee is supposed to meet today. There are two major differences among some other differences as well. One has to do with immigrant driver's license and the ban on that in the House bill, and the other is the timing of implementing Real ID in Minnesota. Do you have feelings about that? Has your department weighed in on that?
Well, I'd prefer to see a two-tier system without language restricting the use of the second tier. I thought there were a number of those, really both sides of the aisle, both House and Senate, who wanted the option for people who don't want to go through the verification procedures for a Real ID license. I don't know where the timing difference. What is the timing difference?
The House would have October of this year start issuing. Your department has said that would be difficult, and
Right.
The Senate has it in 2018, which would require some Minnesotans to get 2 licenses within the expiration period.
Well, we'll do our utmost to meet whatever deadline is set by the legislature. But October of 17, given the amount of time it's going to take, we still have to clear with the Federal Department of Homeland Security what they accept. They turned down our request for an extension, so they have sent a clear message that they have criteria that we're going to have to meet. So I would prefer we have enough time. We can do it right. I would be sorry to inconvenience anybody who has to go through a second license procurement, but it's important that we do this, we do it right, and it's important we do it in a way that satisfies the federal government so we can clear this up permanently for all Minnesotans.
Immigrant driver's license, you had not been a supporter. Are you now a supporter? And could you imagine your administration doing immigrant driver's license administratively rather than through the legislature?
We don't have the authority to do it administratively. We've been through that with other interested parties, and we've asked, we're very clear that I do not have the authority. And especially if the legislature either declines to permit it or prohibits it. Obviously, if they prohibit it, it wouldn't be. But our position is that it requires legislation, at least legislation that's permissive.
Governor, on NPR this morning, you expressed some concern about body camera legislation. If the bill that comes out of conference looks like the 2 bills look right now, would you veto it?
I'm not going to say that about anything at this point. I think it's premature. What I've said to a number of the legislators, we communicated to Senator Latz, to Senator Champion, and others that I think this needs to go back and be reworked with the people who were participating before. And in what I can't say it was a consensus or an agreement, but there was a collaborative effort to bring law enforcement stakeholders as well as the people in the community who are concerned about it, and have something that could be accommodating to those different concerns. And then there were amendments added on the Senate floor. It was the House floor also, or just the Senate? That the community groups opposed and were not given a prior opportunity to comment on. I think that's very unfortunate, given how sensitive this issue is to so many people, to have something that was inserted on the Senate floor that hadn't been considered in committee. I think was destructive to the effort to find an agreement that everybody can live with.
What is it in particular that you would like them to go back and rework in order to kind of gain your approval?
Well, I think, again, this is better left to the conferees to try to work out.
Governor, the Mesabi Academy, which your Department of Human Services pulled some children away from recently because of concerns over mistreatment, says it will close its program as of June. Did you have any influence over that decision, or did you contact them about continuing their operation up there?
I did not contact them directly, no. I did not, I'm aware of what the Department of Human Services has done. I think the initiative was taken first by Ramsey County and then by Hennepin County. And subsequently, the Department of Human Services looked into the matter as well. If that's their decision that kids who are there are not being properly cared for or are not safe there, then that's the right decision.
Anything else?
Governor, we're 82 hours away from the end of session. On your optimism scale, 1 to 10?
That sounds.
That's
does that sound
what
good?
Thiessen
Yeah.
just said on the floor. So,
Okay, well done.
so I trust him, yeah.
Yeah,
What optimism level, 1 to 10?
I think with 82 hours to go, it can go either way. They're obviously at a point now where they